All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to the pre-work preview session tonight. I'm going to start out sharing some information. A lot of the questions that I was getting on that survey form that so many of you were so kind to fill out to let me know that you're going to be attending tonight, or ask your questions if you weren't able to attend tonight, were related to the review process. So real quick, before I even jump into that, I just want to make sure that everybody had a visual on it. As far as your pre-work instructions, you should have gotten a link to the page that you're seeing here, or directly to your intro to programming or to your advanced class pre-work instructions. So we'll take a look at the intro to programming one real quick, just in case. Sorry, I'm still getting some folks trickling in, so I'm admitting them. And then let me open our other one here as well too. Okay, so the intro to programming pre-work, two-part process. You work through a Khan Academy tutorial. The second part, you kind of demonstrate what it was that you've learned or picked up from that tutorial. And then you submit. For the advanced pre-work process, you create a repository of files to be able to build a static site that accesses an open source API and then demonstrates some of the data that you can gather from that API. Intro applicants, don't freak out about that information. We're going to teach you how to do all that in the intro class. All right. As one more reminder, if anybody has questions, unmute and ask. I have no problem being interrupted. You can also pop any questions in the chat too this evening. Okay, so hopefully these pages look familiar to you, whether you're applying for advanced or whether you're applying to intro, because that has all of your step-by-step instructions for either doing your research, prepping your project if you're advanced, or going through the Khan Academy tutorial if you're intro. And then it also kind of breaks down what the requirements are, what we expect you to have. I suspect the majority of the folks on the call tonight are probably intro applicants. If I could just get a quick show of hands, you should have a reaction button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you could just use the thumbs up reaction if you're an intro person, if you're an intro applicant, and if you're not an intro applicant, you do not need to put up a reaction. I'm just kind of gauging about how many intro folks we have on the call tonight. All right. Looks like we do have a fair few. All right, perfect. So I'll go ahead and address sort of the most common intro questions that wind up coming up in the first hand. And any of you that are intro applicants, if you want to go ahead and pop those questions in the chat or interrupt me with any questions, that's perfectly fine too. So the Khan Academy tutorial, we don't actually see any of your work that you're doing on the Khan Academy tutorial. So if you've been exposed to JavaScript, HTML, or CSS or anything like that, sorry, I had a pop-up before, then you can kind of jump around through the Khan Academy tutorial and kind of cover the bits and pieces that maybe you're not sure of. And if it's completely new to you, then the whole tutorial should walk you through and give you enough information for what you need to be able to build your pre-work project. So I'm not going to go over very much of the tutorial. Hopefully everybody did okay with making their way through the Khan Academy tutorial up to this point. Did anybody have any questions about it that I do need to address? Yeah, Echo, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is that I've wrote the program and I loaded up to p5.js, but it doesn't run. Looks like there may not be enough memory on it to run the whole thing.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I separate it into two parts, and then they run, but that's too far.
Yeah, I hadn't actually tested it to see if that was going to be an issue, if anybody writes a whole bunch of code, if it would reach a point where it's like, okay, character limit or anything like that. So that might be what you ran into, I suspect. If that is the case, then I would say either edit it down, or if you can do it as two separate files, then you can submit both of those links to us if you'd like to. Does that help answer the question, Echo?
Yeah, I think I will try to submit both files because I have reduced it. I just don't know. I don't know enough about coding to know what I need to do to reduce much of
to
it.
kind of break it into smaller pieces, or that
I
makes
broke
sense.
them into small pieces, but if I put them together, then I don't know what I can reduce.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be a little tricky. As long as your code is working in the end, and as long as you're meeting the requirements as far as you have variables, you have a function, you have your loop, and you have your conditional statement, then that's perfectly fine. So if there were parts that you couldn't include because of the length, as long as you have those 4 requirements in the part that you are submitting to us, then you should be good to go.
Yeah, my issue right now is that after I break them into 2 parts, neither of those 2 files have all the 4 parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
are they at least showing the portion that they're supposed to show?
yeah, they show it. They just
Okay.
don't run on the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll walk through some of that too. It might be just some user interface thing that you're overlooking too. So we'll walk through that as well.
It could be.
So to answer the primary question that we had from a number of folks as far as the review process. So once you submit your pre-work assignments to us, whether it's the advanced class GitHub repository or it's the intro to programming, P5JS drawing or animation, then we will review that code, make sure that it's meeting requirements, and then we grade it just on a scale. So as long as you're meeting those 4 requirements for the intro, as long as you're meeting the requirements for the advanced, as far as it being on a public GitHub repository, using one of those open source APIs we provided you with, and hitting 2 data endpoints for that open source API, then you're in pretty good shape as it is. We are increasing the number of students that we're accepting into the programs. So if you're meeting the requirements, you're in good position to be able to be accepted into the class. If we do wind up running into any limits, I don't think we will, because I think we had a total of about 350 some folks applying for the fall classes. And since we have all 4 of our classes going, then if we kind of divide that number up, I think we'll probably be okay. But if you want to give yourself a little bit of an edge, then obviously doing something that either is aesthetically pleasing with your site. So for your advanced applicants, if you're making something that has like a light and dark mode toggle, or, you know, just something that's really visually stunning or anything like that, then that's fine. For the intro applicants, if it seems like you were kind of stretching yourself a little bit and doing more than just those minimum requirements of those 4 items, then that puts you in even better position if we were to reach the point where we do have to kind of gauge and say, okay, these people all met the requirements, but we don't have enough room for all of these, then that would give you a little bit of an edge. Okay, there were some questions that came up in the chat, so let me go ahead and address those. Oh, sorry, before I jump into those. So after we do the review process, it takes a couple of weeks. We have teams of folks. We have 2 different groupings of individuals that will review the pre-work and give those different grades, and we take the average of the grades. So if one team reviews your work and gives you a 6 out of 10, and another team reviews your work and gives you an 8 out of 10, then your average score will be a 7. Pretty much anybody that's, I think, like a score of 4 or higher usually is able to be accepted. So again, everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. As long as you're meeting those requirements and followed instructions for your assignment, then you should be in pretty good shape. On August 7th is when we'll be sending out the offer letters, and we'll also send out notifications. So if you didn't get offered a seat in class because your project didn't meet requirements, then we also let you know, we're sorry, we're not able to accept you this time. Here's some great resources you can use on your own, or further study that you can do to prepare yourself to apply for the next round. So we don't leave anybody hanging. I hate being ghosted, and I refuse to let anybody in our program be ghosted. So don't worry, you will get word back one way or another on August 7th. It'll probably be more towards the evening. I'm usually the person who sends those letters out, and I typically work evenings. So if it's 11 or 12 o'clock at night and you're nervous and you finally see it in your inbox, it's just because I'm working nights. So just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. Okay, hopefully that answers questions about the review process and when you'll hear back. Did anybody have any questions about the review process and when you'll hear back?
Hi, Mary.
Yeah, TK, go ahead.
Sorry if there is a background noise. My daughter is playing with her
That's
toys.
fine.
When I download, since we are talking like from the back end, I'm downloading a zip folder from the p5.js, and I have 5 different files. Let's say I'm submitting today. What should I be picking up from those files?
And you're doing the advanced, or you're doing the intro pre-work?
Intro.
Intro pre-work? There shouldn't be anything that you need to download. So when you go to do your project for the P5JS, I did sort of a little sample thing, a little example to be able to show. So it takes you to editor P5JS and it defaults you with just function setup and function draw with a background is how it starts out when you first go to the page. So you can just change your canvas size to anything that you want to, and you'll write all of your code just directly in this file here. So that you shouldn't need to download files, you shouldn't need to upload files. If you're doing something really fancy and like incorporating images or things like that, I think they all have to be web-based. I don't know that there is a way to be able to insert those files into your sketch. So you'd want to use like the URL address for the image to be able to reference an image. But in general, for the P5JS, for those of you who've had any issues with it, if you're copy and pasting your code from Khan Academy, which it's totally fine to do. If you did a project in Khan Academy, you like the way it looked, you can copy and paste your code in here. You need to be absolutely sure that you have your function set up with create canvas, and you have to have your function draw with whatever it is that you're drawing inside the draw function in order for it to be able to render. So hopefully that helps in case anybody had any issues there. To be able to see your code, if it's not running on its own, then you just hit the play button. It'll refresh this preview so that way you can see whatever the code is that you wrote. So for example, if I'm going to change the color of something, then I can do that. I have it set to auto refresh and I had already saved the file. So it changed the color of my item by doing that. So hopefully that's helpful from that standpoint in case anybody was running into any issues on that front. And then the address that you send us when you go to submit is just the URL, the editor p5js.org/ and then it'll have your username. I'm signed in as classes, and then it'll say sketches, and then it'll have either some code, or if you titled it something specific, it'll have a specific code there. All right, Echo, yeah, you had another question?
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah, yes, Tibabo, I'll get to you in just 1 second. Go ahead, Echo.
Yes, my question is that I kind of remember to submit, there's only a space for one submission, like one URL. And since I think at this point I'm going to submit, 2 files, how do I do that? Do I just add the second one to the first one, or?
Yeah, just submit a
somewhere
second time.
There's a, like if you want to update or something. But I do think there's still only one space for one file.
Yeah, you can just submit it a second time, and I'll make a note to myself to go ahead and put both of those URLs together. So that way the reviewing team will check both of them for you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Tibebo. Thanks for waiting.
Hello, my name is Babu. I fill out 3 times, 24 times. I'm really interested to take this class, but I can't do the Prework. I don't know. I don't know somewhere what's my mistake. Maybe how you can help me. 3 times or 4 times I fill out, but you don't accept me.
Sorry, so the question was, you've applied a couple of times and you haven't gotten feedback about the times that you've applied before. Am I understanding that right?
Well, my question is the pre-work. I fill out 3 times or 4 times. But
you've sent it.
Oh, yes.
So you've sent in the pre-work a few times and you just wanted to confirm that we got it?
No. You didn't accept.
Sorry, your audio is fuzzy, so it's hard for me to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And you can type the question in chat too if it's helpful.
I fill out 3 times or 4 times this pre-work. 3 times or 4 times, but you didn't accept me.
So you've done the pre-work.
Yes, you done my pre-work, but
yeah. So the pre-work on the editor P5JS, you just do that one file and you submit that one link to that one file is all that you need. So if you've done multiple projects as your pre-work, just pick whatever one's your favorite and send it in.
I can't fill out. I don't know. Maybe do you have another opportunity, or can you help me?
Yeah, Yeah, if you
Yeah,
aren't able to get it turned in by Sunday, the 23rd, the deadline for the fall classes, then just email me, let me know that you weren't going to be able to get it done in time. You want to change your application to the spring 2024 classes, and then you'll want to be sure to submit by that deadline. The deadline for the spring classes is going to be October 22nd. So it gives you until, middle of fall to be able to continue to work on the pre-work and then submit it to us by October 22nd.
Okay. So can I mail you?
Yes, yeah, just go ahead and email me. It's classes@codethedream.org. So if anybody needs to change their application, if they're like, I'm not going to get it in this time, that's fine. Let me push it to spring 2024. Just email classes@codethedream.org and let us know your name and that you want to change it from fall to spring. And that way we can update.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. And Sonali, you had a question too?
Yes, so sorry, pardon. Yeah, so
No, you're
I
fine.
upload when I submitted the assignment, and I uploaded image also. There is in arrow button, scratch.js, there is a upload option is there, upload image. So using preload function, I uploaded. So is it okay? Like I can upload the image, right?
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah, any images that you want to upload and incorporate, that's perfectly fine to do. If you want to just use images that are available on the internet, you can do that too by using the web address to be able to reference it when you're writing your code to do that. Either of those is perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about any copyright laws or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just pre-work coming to us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Tibebo, did you have another question? All right, a couple of folks were asking about the due date.
Kendra, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Kendra. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm very confused. So I am pretty much stuck. Well, I'm not quite stuck anymore, but I'm on lesson 15 where you have to do the rain for the project in the intro course. And so I started getting confused when it started. The for and while statements, I understand that. But then when it went into the arrays and then putting them into the arrays and then it turned into objects and arrays and objects, I'm just like, I'm completely lost. So is there somehow to I've watched the video several times, I've read the reviews several times, and it's just not clicking for me. So is there something is there additional or what can I do?
Yeah, so there are some other resources. The one I tend to like the best is W3 Schools. I'm going to go ahead and put the address for it in the chat. So that way, if anybody needs or wants to use that, feel free to. And they're a good, sort of almost like a glossary or like a dictionary that can help you out with JavaScript stuff. I wouldn't hang up on the arrays and objects though. The Khan Academy tutorial does give you a lot of information and it exposes you to a lot of new information if you're new to it, but we are going to cover all of arrays, objects, methods, functions, variables, all kinds of things in detail in the first several weeks of your intro class anyway. So if you feel like you've been flying by the seat of your pants through the Khan Academy tutorial and it's all new and very overwhelming, it's okay. This isn't your one shot. You need to know it all perfectly by the end of the pre-work. It's just to give you enough to go on so that way we can see that you can work with that kind of format of learning.
Okay, I understand. And then, so one more question.
Sure.
This editor P5JS that you have up, is there more to do outside of the Khan Academy? So when I finish lesson 18, I'm not done. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. Yeah. So, and somebody asked in the chat earlier too. So there's part 1 and part 2. So for the intro to programming pre-work, part 1 is just the Khan Academy part. Part 2 is where you demonstrate what you've learned from that Khan Academy tutorial.
Oh, wow.
So when you go to the demonstrate part, then it'll walk you through signing up for a P5JS editor account, writing your code, make sure it includes those 4 things, double check your work, and then submit. And again, if anybody's like, wow, I didn't realize it was that much, I'm feeling overwhelmed, just email classes@codethedream.org and we can push your application to the spring classes. And that gives you until October to be able to do your pre-work and submit it to us.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna see somebody put a message up saying that, like, is it how much on Sunday? Is it like by 12 or is it the end of the day? How far is that into the Sunday that do we have here?
Yeah, we know folks are in different time zones, so there's a little bit of wiggle room really by Monday morning. Monday morning is when we're going to check and kind of go through, make sure your links work. If for some reason you did accidentally like hit the delete key or hit a weird character key when you were copy and pasting your code in, your link to your code in, and you wound up sending us something that wasn't a link to your work, we'll notify you by email, and then you have about 3 to 5 days to be able to get that link working and resubmit it to us. So Monday mornings when we're going to do that preliminary review, make sure that all the links that people have submitted are working and getting us to the project that they want us to see to evaluate for the review process. Yeah, so any of those night owls out there that want to be finishing things all the way up to 1 or 2 a.m. your time, that's okay. Still go ahead and submit it. It's not that hard and fast like, oh, the clock struck 12, that's it, kind of a deadline. Yeah, we've got some other questions too. Ty, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? I think your hand popped up next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, did you say there's like some advanced like React pre-work that we have to do too?
For intro students, no. So if you're applying for the intro to programming class, there isn't anything else that you're having to submit or do at all. For advanced students who are applying to the advanced classes, so if you're applying to the Ruby on Rails, Node, or React class, then they have a separate pre-work assignment that they do where they're building an actual static site that has a navigation and uses an open API source. If you're applying to intro, the only thing we need from you is just your P5.js drawing or animation.
From Khan Academy.
So you'll actually use this P5.js. So Khan Academy is just the tutorial that you worked through to get familiar with what to do with your assignment portion. It's kind of like you read a textbook and then you do some work in a workbook. So this is like the workbook version. So you go through Khan Academy, that's like going through your textbook, and then you use what you learned from Khan Academy to make a simple thing that hits those 4 requirements: a variable like you see here, a unique function like you see here, a for loop, a conditional, and you want to incorporate those 4 items into the code that you send. It doesn't have to be anything very fancy. Like here, I just made a very basic, simple sort of stoplight idea by using the if, by using the for, by creating 3 circles and using some variables. So it doesn't have to be anything super amazing fancy, but it should be something that you've come up with or that you built using Khan Academy. And then you write all of your code in here and just send us the link to it there. And the step-by-step instructions for how to get to the P5.js editor and walk through all of that is in that part 2 of your instructions. So you'll want to go to part 2 of the instructions.
Okay.
All right. And then Imari, you have a question if you'd like to go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, yes, I did have a quick question. Mainly just about the assignment specifically. I applied to for the intro portion of everything. Yeah. So I did see that like in the instructions that it said that you could either copy and paste what you did on Khan Academy and then put it in PS5 or either just do it straight on that site. Now, when you say copy and paste, could we copy and paste like any project that we did? Those lessons? Oh, so it can be any project that we've done.
Yeah. Okay, like I think they have one where you're building a meal on a plate, and I think they have one where like a snowman.
Okay, see, I just wanted to make sure because obviously like this was my first time like being introduced to code. So with that being said, on Khan Academy, obviously they put some things in there for us to kind of just help aid along that process. So I didn't know if we were supposed to be creating a whole new code from scratch or if we could go off of the projects we did already.
Yeah, you can go off of the projects you did already. One thing to be sure of though is that you're still meeting those 4 requirements. So if you do like the dinner plate one and you're like, oh, this doesn't have a for loop, then you need to
just add something.
Exactly,
okay, great. Yeah. That was all I was wondering. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Thanks, Amari. Anna G, you've got a question?
I do. I'm intro. And I would like to apply on React and Node.js simultaneously. Do I still need to go through part 2 for submission or how it goes?
Oh, sure. Anna, are you in our intro class currently? Because I was going to say, you look very familiar to me. Okay.
I'm lead there. Yeah.
You're good. You don't need to do the pre-work at all. Since you are an intro student with our program right now, the final project that you're building in your intro class serves as your pre-work. You can take React and Node together, but just be aware it's going to be like 30 to 40 hours a week of work taking 2 classes with us, because each class is about 15 to 20 hours worth of work each week. So just be aware that that's a pretty big time commitment.
I'll try. If not, I'll just drop one of them.
Perfect. All right.
But
Thanks.
it means as soon we finish intro, I will need to know you. I will need to let you know that I want to take those classes, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. When you send in your final project to us for that intro class, that intro final project, then the homework assignment form that you've usually been using, it'll look a little bit different, and it'll say, what classes do you want to take next? And so you'll select what classes you want to take next after that.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Anna. I think there was somebody else that had just popped their hand up briefly. Sonali, was it you?
Yes, it's me. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you, in Khan Academy, once I finished that 18 lessons of JavaScript. So I'm doing ahead courses also, HTML, CSS, SQL. I know already, but I'm just revising everything. So I'm doing advanced JS also. So is it useful for this training purpose? If I'm doing that advanced level, it will be useful.
Yeah, I think anything that you do that's a step above definitely gives you an edge. So there's no harm in kind of stretching your skills.
Sorry, in advanced JS now they have game and visualization, so that's I just wanted to make sure like it will be useful for me during training session.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Nastasia, did you have a question? I see you're unmuted.
Yes, sorry. So I see here what you show us for the pre-work for the loop. It's while, it's like my project has while.
Yes, yeah. While is totally acceptable too. Yeah, there are a couple of variations you can do for conditionals, and a couple of variations you can do for loops. So for and while are both acceptable for loops.
Okay.
If else ifs, switch cases, all of those are perfectly acceptable for your conditionals.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, great question.
I try to understand everything. Thank you.
No problem. Absolutely. I'm going to circle back for just a minute and pause questions from folks to be able to address some of the questions that came in through chat. I just want to make sure that I'm covering those because I know quite a few came through. Okay, so hopefully everybody has the link for the pre-work information. I'd pop that up in the chat in case you hadn't, but it's going to be open-pre-work after codethedream.org. So codethedream.org, open-pre-work will get you to the main page. And then from there, you can select intro or advanced. Let's see here. So what you'll be sending in is just the P5JS. Somebody had asked about, do you have to send in all 18 links of all the lessons that you completed in Khan Academy? Nope, you don't need to send us anything at all from Khan Academy. The only thing you should send us for the intro to programming application pre-work is just your P5JS sketch. Yeah, Rachel, you had a question. Did you want to go ahead and ask?
I'm sorry. Can I reiterate my question? That was my question. We copy and paste all the codes in one file and copy the link?
Nope, you won't even need to do that. So for Khan Academy, I know they have you go through several lessons.
I'm talking about P5JS.
Oh, for P5JS, yeah. The only thing you need is just this link right up here. So when you get to the submission portion for the form, let me go ahead and pull that up so you can kind of have a visual on that. The form's embedded right here. So you would just type in your name, type in your email address, and then the link right here that you have to your work, you would just copy that and then paste it right in here. And that's all that we need is just fill out the questions there, paste in your link, which should be editor.p5js.org. It'll have your username here. It'll say sketches, and then it'll either have like a title if you gave your project a title, or it'll have just random characters. And then from there, you just click submit. Did that help, TK?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm still confused. Let's say the sketches, you will see all the sketches that I saved in my account, or you will see...
So if you, for this link, you'll only see this one. So if you did multiple, I understand your question now. That's a great question. So if you did multiple sketches here...
I should have 18 at least.
That's right. Yeah. Just send the link to the one that you want us to see. So you would go to that specific sketch that you want us to see and send just the link to that individual sketch.
Oh, you're looking to one only.
Yes. Yeah. You only need to send one.
Oh, okay. That's not in the direction. So I thought that you're going to see and review all 18.
Oh, no. Yeah. We don't need to do all 18. So just pick the one that has the 4 requirements, the variable, the loop, the conditional, and the unique function, and send us the link to that one particular sketch.
Okay. And what is your recommended number? Which one it should be?
So I'm not sure offhand because I don't know the Khan Academy tutorial well enough off the top of my head to know if they do have one project in particular that encompasses those 4 requirements. So if there is one that has all 4, great, send us that one. If there's one that doesn't have a for loop and a conditional and a unique function that you've created and variables in it, don't send us those. You want to make sure that you have those 4 requirements: a variable, a unique function, a loop of some variety, and a conditional of some variety. All right. So let me go back. Sorry, go ahead, TK. Was there another question you had?
Thank you. I said got it. Shared.
Perfect. Ty, you had a question. Go ahead and unmute and ask.
Me. Yeah, I had a question. Oh.
So you're using let. That's the same as variable, right?
Yeah, let, var, const are all very similar as far as initializing a variable. In this case, I just happen to use let.
And then so far in Khan Academy, they haven't done nothing with create canvas.
Yeah, so the setup and create canvas is unique to the P5JS. They have things running in the background on Khan Academy to where you don't have to use that. But for example, if I were to comment that out, then it's not going to run my code for me. So the create canvas, the setup, and the function draw with a background, those are all what are your starting point when you first go to the P5JS. And from there, you just need to put in any additional code for like loops or drawing shapes or things like that in your draw function for them to be able to show up.
So P5 will have the canvas and draw and all that?
Yeah. When you first start out, it initially looks like, let me see if I can actually just open up a new one. Yeah, so when you first start out, it starts you out with just this. And from there, that's when you add your code to it.
And you don't put anything inside those brackets, you put it all goes down below.
So you can either put it down below and then call it inside the draw, but it does need to be inside this draw function here. So it needs to be between these curly braces for your code to be able to run.
All right.
Yeah. Kimberly, you had a question. Did you want to go ahead and ask?
Oh, I had a question too.
Oh,
I just wanted to ask about the way the class structure was going to be.
Sure.
I know that everything is going to be self-paced, but I'm wondering, like, do you meet with your classmates at some point? Do you do projects together? Do you meet with your instructor like weekly on Zoom or something? And just wanted to know what that was like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely be answering that question tonight, Rachel.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Kimberly, did you have a question about the P5JS editor?
Just that there were a couple little like snares that I noticed some like library type stuff or functions that I get used to using in Khan Academy that I just thought would work. And then I had to like, create. And so sort of, I actually spent a long time doing this like fancy graphic in Khan Academy and I could not get it to work. So I just scaled way back.
Oh no. Yeah.
Like,
that's totally
and I didn't
fine
understand
to do,
the difference, but I really did have a hard time transitioning. Like the arcs didn't work out. All the graphics, the program ended up working, but it's just doesn't have the same flair. But that took a long time for me. I don't know if other people ran into that also. I'm new, so I don't have a lot of background or experience, and so it felt like a big hurdle.
A big leap.
It did. Everything feels like a hurdle when you're new, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It always feels like an uphill struggle when you're new, for sure. Yeah. If anybody is running into those issues, like what Kimberly's talking about, I know like no stroke and stroke, that's also a common one that comes up with people's drawings, that it kind of gets a little screwy and like it applies outlines to everything, or it takes outlines off of everything, even though you put it right above a particular shape or things like that. So if anybody's having like little nuance issues like that, where, you know, you can't get arc to work properly, or you have stroke issues as far as outlines on shapes or things like that, definitely use the P5JS reference. It gives you very specific information as far as like, okay, if you're having an issue with the outline, strokes not working, then it'll give you examples of this is how it should work, and it demonstrates it for you here. You can even kind of play around with it a little bit and say, oh, well, what if I change this? What happens then? So you can kind of play with it to see what happens when I manipulate how the code's supposed to be. So feel free to check out the reference portion of P5JS in case you are running into any issues similar to what Kimberly was saying. I'm going to go ahead and pop that up in the chat too, in case anybody needs it. And then we had a couple of questions, one from Kaylin, one from Ankur. Kaylin, if you want to go ahead and go first with your question.
Hi. So the question that I'm having is that what Kimberly said, I had to change my assignment because a lot of it was changing. The issue that I'm also having is when it comes to doing anything like replacing mouse, like X and Y.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, when I go to use it, like let's say I want to change, so I have my own function and I wanted to make my function the mouse, but it's off. So like the function is off probably like further to the left than where the mouse is.
Oh, okay. It should pick up wherever your canvas is at. It wouldn't be a very quick example for me to be able to cover tonight.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And mouse presses or user interaction aren't required to be able to meet the requirements, but they are pretty fun to play around with. In general, though, anything that you're using as far as like mouse positioning that you're referencing in your code, it should pick it up from the start of the preview window. So I would maybe just kind of double check using the reference tools to make sure that those are working. I think they do have some in here as far as those are shapes, constants, structure, rendering, transforms, events. Here we go. Yeah, so they have like key presses, key release. They have mouse position information here, mouse press, mouse drag. So I would definitely check out that reference link that I popped in there and take a look at what you're using specifically, just to make sure that the syntax is how it needs to be for it to work with the P5JS library.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Ankur, go ahead with your question.
Yes, so once the student is selected for intro class after pre-work submission, next semester he or she get automatically enrolled in other classes, or they have to still go through pre-work for those classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, that's one I've been answering for a lot of our intro students right now. Once you're accepted into our program, whether you're accepted at the intro level or the advanced level, once you're in, as long as you're a student in good standing, meaning you're either staying on track with the class and completing the class, or you're communicating with us like, hey, something's come up in my life. I just need to pause class until next trimester. So once you've been accepted in the program, you're good to go. If you just stop coming to classes, we don't hear from you anymore, at that point, we'd ask you to reapply before you'd be able to take another class with us. So hopefully that helped answer your question, Ankur. Did that?
Yeah,
okay, perfect. Wonderful. I think there were a couple other questions that came up in chat, so let me just double check on those. It is mandatory to submit the pre-work if you want to apply for the fall 2023 classes. As I had mentioned earlier, if you don't think you'll be able to get it in by Sunday night, Monday morning, to be able to get your pre-work in by the deadline for those fall classes, just email classes@codethedream.org and say, I didn't have enough time, push me to the spring 2024 classes, and then be sure to get your pre-work submitted to us by October 22nd is the deadline for the spring classes. I'm gonna go ahead and put the email in the chat as well too, so that way you all have it in case you need it. Classes@codethedream.org and send. Okay, and I think we've clarified about, you just need to send one link to your P5JS. For those of you doing advanced, you just send the one link to your GitHub repository, so that way we can see the site that you built. Some folks had asked about sample projects for the advanced classes. I don't have any ready to pull up off the top of my head. but they don't necessarily have to be anything too fancy. Let me see if I can't, let me check, because I've had some students that are currently enrolled that had asked about the same kind of a thing. And I think I did send them some ideas as far as how that goes. So let me take a look really quick at that. Sorry, I'm jumping windows here. That's just our class calendar for going out a little bit. It's a bit of an eyesore. Okay. All right, let me see if I can't locate. And of course, this one open. Here we go. Since I'm screen sharing, it's being a little wonky. And sometimes we have partner organizations that are like, can you give us an idea of, you know, what our recommended students should have? Of course, I'm also looking for ones that would have been deployed. Okay, give me 2 more seconds and I should be able to pull up from the previous application round that I can show you. For those of you looking at advanced. And for advanced, we're actually doing something new this time around. So before we only used the Star Wars API. And so you had to have like a website that had, you know, a list of people, a list of films, and you could click on those navigation links and it would populate a list of the people, or it would show you one specific character and the details about them, click on films and it would show you like the details about the film or whatever. So that was how we used to do it, but we've opened it up to a couple of different open source APIs, which can make people's work look very different this time around. But the idea is still the same, is that you want to use that open source API to be able to get access to the data they've sort of stockpiled. And that way you can then show 2 endpoints of that data. So for example, I think one of them is coffee recipes. Hot coffee versus cold coffee. So you might want to build a site that shows hot coffees, cold coffees, and those would be your 2 endpoints, and it would show the different recipes for those. I think weather app is one that we have on there too. So you might want to have one that shows like the weather conditions. Is it rainy? Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? And then also one that shows the current temperature. So it just needs to hit 2 endpoints of the API that you're using. Anna, you've got a question? If you want to go ahead and unmute and ask.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hi, so I'm brand new at this, and in Khan Academy, we did several small projects, and I don't have one particular project that has all the things together, and terrifying to me to try and combine them, because then they don't really work together. I don't know. I don't know how to put all the things that are required into one program.
Yeah, that can be the hardest part, is kind of figuring out like, well, how do I change this to make it meet requirements? And that's something you'll experience throughout being a developer for sure. So start out small. Like if your first one was, you know, building the snowman and they had you make a circle for the snowman, well, you'll need 3 circles to make a snowman, just like I needed 3 circles to be able to make a stoplight. Instead of writing, you know, make a circle, this position, this size, make a circle, this position, this size, make a circle, this position, this size, you can use a loop to say, make those 3 circles. So rather than using my code here, for example, we can just completely comment that out. And if we wanted to make 3 circles, then we could do ellipse and we'll give it a size and a location. So right now when we do it, there's just one big circle. That's all that's there, right? Because it's doing 3 circles, but it's doing them on top of each other, because you're saying put them all in the exact same place at the exact same time. So if you wanted to change the positioning of them, I think X and Y are our first ones here. So you could just have it changed by iteration to be able to put it in a different spot. And that way you are looping and you are making 3 different shapes, but you only had to write ellipse 1 time for it to be able to make those 3. So sometimes it's a matter of like looking at, okay, what is the drawing they had me make? What is the shape they had me make? Is there something that I'm doing multiple times that I can translate into you know what, I'm going to use a for loop to make it do that multiple times for me. If there isn't something obvious like that, like, you know, making the 3 balls for the snowman, or making multiple tires for a vehicle or something like that, then you can also just use a for loop to be able to make multiples of something. I think there's like a fishbowl one that they have you draw a fish, so you can use a for loop to make multiple fishes. So kind of thinking in those terms as far as, okay, how can I break this down? And then think about what are they asking me to do? Make multiples of something by looping, or changing how something looks based on the value of a number or something like that, to be able to do a conditional. So those are some things that you can do to sort of force one of those requirements into something that maybe doesn't already have a requirement based on the Khan Academy tutorial. Hopefully that helps some.
Yeah, does our program have to be interactive?
It does not. It can just be a static image. Yeah, it does not have to be something that the user clicks on or anything like that. It doesn't have to be something that moves back and forth, anything like that. So it does not have to be animated. It's a little bit more fun if it is, but it doesn't have to be, as long as you're meeting those 4 requirements of variable, loop, conditional, and function.
I'm muted right now.
Thank
Now
you so much.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah, Nick, did you have a question? Maybe not. Rachel, so let me get back to your question then for you to be able to cover. So the format of classes, whether you're in intro or advanced, our classes primarily are going to be work through tutorials, work through videos, read the text that we provide you, whatever the case may be. So we provide you with the lesson materials. You'll go ahead and get started on that weekly lesson to be able to watch the videos or read through the content. Throughout that week, you have opportunities to meet with mentors, and we have 2 different styles of ways of meeting with the mentors. We'll have several volunteers that'll have a standard 1-hour session every day of the week, whatever day works best for them. Typically, it's going to be evenings, days of the week, and then sometimes on weekends that volunteers have those times available. So say Bob volunteers with us every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. is when he has an available hour to be able to help students out. So every Tuesday at 5, if you want to meet with Bob for a session, you can meet with Bob for a session. And we share that schedule with you every week in case their schedule changes for personal or professional reasons, then you're aware of any changes that happen on their calendar. And you can attend either of those group sessions, or we also have links for you to be able to sign up for an appointment with a one-on-one mentor. So if you're like, yeah, group sessions are great, but I'm really struggling with this concept, I need to just hunker down and have somebody help me one-on-one with this particular concept, then you can do those one-on-one mentor sessions. We also have opportunities throughout. So students that might already feel strong in the content, or students that have recently graduated from your class and want to come back and volunteer with your class, we'll have student study sessions. So it's just sort of like an online study hall. You can compare notes from mentor sessions, you can help each other out, that kind of information. And you'll have a coding assignment each week. So you go through your lesson materials, you reach out to mentors, you reach out to classmates to be able to get any help with areas that you might be struggling on or that you want to confirm your understanding correctly. You'll do a coding assignment to be able to demonstrate that you're grasping what you're learning. Usually in most of the classes, your assignments build from week to week. So like the intro class, they build a portfolio website for themselves. So they start out just learning basic JavaScript, getting those fundamentals down. And then about a third of the way into the class, they start working on a portfolio site where they'll build the page, they'll add content to the page week by week. And then by the end of the class, then you have your final project finished because you've been working on it for like 10 or 12 weeks building on it. At the end of your class, you submit your final project. Your reviewers will take a look at everything, give you feedback on it. As long as you meet the requirements on that, you're good to advance to the next part of the program. It's up to you what you want to do next. So if you complete intro and you're like, I want to take React next, great. Or if you're like, no, I really like Node, I want to take Node next, fine. So you just let us know what class you want to take after that. And you can just keep rolling with the program all the way through. For those of you applying to advanced classes, or once you are in an advanced class after you get through intro, the advanced class has a portion at the end of it called practicum. And that's when you get into small groups. So you'll talk to your classmates and form small groups to be able to work on a group project together where you're building a site or an application together as a team. You have a specific designated mentor that helps you through that process, because once you start doing group teamwork, then it gets a little more confusing because you have this person working on that line of code while this person is working on that line of code, and it can wind up turning into an unholy mess sometimes. So you have a mentor that helps your specific team through things, and we have backup mentors too to be able to help out. Rachel, did that answer everything, or do you still have some questions about sort of the format and process?
Yeah, so for the format, thank you. That answered everything. Now, Perfect. I have a question about a project. Is it okay if I ask this question? So I'm gonna try to enter the advanced course for React.js, and I chose the weather API. Yeah. And I know you mentioned needing to put in 2 concepts. So like the, for example, the weather condition, if it's cloudy, or the temperature. Yeah. Is that, if let's say I deliver a website where I don't have a user input and it just like loads your locations, weather, is that like enough, or like, do you really?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, you don't have to have any kind of user interactivity element implemented in that advanced pre-work. So you don't have to have like a form field to be able to plug it in, or a search field or anything like that. Like you can just pull it based off of their browser information.
Because I like right now what I'm using is so I'm in Boston. I typed in Boston, and the page pretty much just loads every time, and it just shows the cloudiness and the temperature in Boston. So when you guys get it, it's just going to show the temperature in Boston. And like, is that okay, or is it going to?
That's a relief. We might like that, because a lot of us are based here in North Carolina. We'd probably like the cooler temperatures up in Boston. So that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
If you're able to get it to have that functionality where you can put in like a zip code or a longitude, latitude or something before the cutoff, then totally go for it. But,
yeah, I was trying to. There's like, it gets complicated, so that's why, if I didn't have enough time, I wanted to know if it was okay to just submit it as is with just Boston.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Sure thing. All right, let me take a look through the chat to see if there are any other questions that I'm forgetting, because I don't see any raised hands right at the moment. Looping through arrays does count as a loop for your assessment. Somebody had asked specifically about that. So if you have an array and you're looping through the array, you've got a loop in there, so you're good to go. Let's see here. Scrolling down through intro to programming. If you're applying for intro to programming, do not do the advanced work. If you're applying for advanced classes and you take a look at the advanced work and you're like, oh, this is more than I can do, then feel free to pivot and do the intro work and submit the intro work. Anybody who applied for advanced, if your advanced work doesn't meet the requirements, or it's not quite up to snuff, as they say, and you want to take the intro class instead, then we will let you know that. So if you apply for advanced, submit pre-work for advanced, but your work doesn't qualify you to get into the advanced class, then we'll email you and say your work didn't quite make the expectations. If you'd like to take the intro class, you can take the intro class. So you do have that as a fallback, just in case. Let's see here.
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually like, a whole lot of stuff just became completely new knowledge to me today. I was doing my project on like Khan Academy, and I'm still like a little confused for what I actually wanted. I'm having some trouble with like the loops and pretty much just like knowing like how do I create what is it I want to create. And now I'm finding out that I have to transfer everything that I have onto this P5.js, and everything is damn near just completely different. Like now that I'm just looking at what's on the screen, the draw function is completely different. It's not even it's function draw. Like, so for how much stuff on this are completely different?
Yeah, so the library that Khan Academy uses is a drawing library, and they do have different methods. So like the ellipse is basically like a function. Just like we have a draw function, like we have the 3 circles function. Ellipse is a function, and you're telling it specific things so it knows how to draw that ellipse. So you give it an X coordinate, a Y coordinate, how tall you want it to be, how wide you want it to be. So there are some variations between the old processing.js drawing library that Khan Academy uses, because they haven't updated it to what's more in use these days. So you do have some differences, and like what Kimberly was talking about earlier too, how you might try and use the ARC and it doesn't quite work perfectly. So there are some things that you would have to take a look at the reference information to be able to see, okay, how am I supposed to structure that to be able to get it to work? And the way you would kind of troubleshoot that is copy and paste your Khan Academy code into the draw section. So you'd want to have it right in here. And then if things aren't showing up the way they were showing up in Khan Academy, start taking a look at those specific things and dig into what it is that's causing it. So for example, if you had an ARC that you were using and it's not showing up the way you would want it to, that's when you'd want to use the reference to be able to take a look and say, oh, okay, let me search for ARC and see how I'm supposed to do it in P5.js. And it gives you an example and it lets you know, like, this is how to be able to break it down to be able to get it to work.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the easiest thing, is to copy and paste the whole thing and then sort of go a little step by step and break it down. That process is called debugging. We do it a lot in development. So it's not uncommon to be like, okay, why is something broken? Where is it broken? And kind of going line by line until you kind of discover, oh, that's what's causing it, and then fix it from there.
Yeah, I can't. That's like really irritating.
I know it's very like strange thought process for a lot of folks. It's a very new concept as far as like how to kind of problem solve and break it down. And like I said, if you need a little bit more time on the pre-work, that's fine. Just email classes@codethedream.org, say, let me push this back to spring classes, and I'll keep working on it between now and October 22nd when the deadline is for the spring classes.
Hello.
Did that help
if I may
answer your
ask?
question? Yeah, go ahead. Was that Dimitri?
Yep, correct. So what I was willing to double check. So during the education, will we be using again this 5.js site, or will we need to download and use to put it onto our computer as a separate program, or are we going to use the same online version?
That's a great question. You'll actually be using something different. There are tons and tons of tools very similar to the P5.js editor out there. Just to completely overwhelm you, because I'm sure you all aren't already overwhelmed. But there's Code Sandbox is one of them. We used to use that with a similar kind of structure and setup. There's Code Pen is one that does it as well. And of course, it's trying to go to an account that I don't have there anymore. But all of them are kind of similar in a structure. For the first several weeks of the intro class, you're going to use Replit.com, and Replit has assignments where you have that index.js file where you're writing your code, and then your code is going to run. For the first several weeks of intro, it's not visual. So that's one nice thing about doing your pre-work in a visual format of a drawing or an animation, is you write your code and you see what it does right then and there. For the assignments that you do as a student, it's going to be writing code and then checking it to be able to see, oh, is the value of that variable the text that I want it to be? Is the calculation that comes out from adding those two variables together the right math calculation? Things like that. So it's a little less visual. You do still have the options and availability in writing your code to be able to see what those things are using console logs, or running your code to see what winds up happening when you have those numbers interact. But it is less visual than P5.js. When you get a little bit further on in Intro to Programming, then you'll download Visual Studio Code, or you can use any other kind of code editor that you prefer to use. And basically it's just a panel that has, here are all the files of code that you're writing. You have a section for you to be able to change the lines of code within any of those particular files. And then you have what's called your terminal, which is what you use to be able to like make backups of your code, send your code off, all kinds of fun things like that. So we get into all the details in the intro class. There's nothing specific that you need to download to be ready for the first day of class, other than you need to make sure Zoom works if you're going to be doing mentor sessions. So that's the primary thing. It's just make sure that you've got your Zoom account.
Thank you so much for the answer.
Sure thing. And I've got somebody just in as Zoom user that's unmuted. Did you have a question, whoever that is?
Yes, I got a question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
So I started the pre-work assessment a couple weeks ago when we had our first meeting in East Grand Forks, and I got as far as animation, and I got through all that, and I got to the part where it says bonus round. That's where I got confused at. So do we have to finish all of that before to be considered for a September class?
Let me take a look and see. You're talking about in Khan Academy?
Yes.
Okay, let me take a look and see kind of where we're at with that, because I need to get a visual on that to make sure I'm understanding what you're asking me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it would have been like one of these types of items that said bonus round?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, usually the challenges or the bonus rounds that oh, here we go, bonus, resizing with variables. So those are things that you're welcome to work through. You might not need them in order to still get your drawing or your animation to work for what you want to submit as your pre-work. Again, we don't see what your progress is throughout all of these units in Khan Academy. So feel free to jump around if you need to, or skip over parts if you're a little pressed for time. As long as you have what you need to be able to do the variable, the loop, the conditional, and the unique function, and get that onto your pre-work and submit it, then that's all that you need. And everything that you've learned in Khan Academy, we're going to teach you all in detail when you're in the program, when you're in the intro to programming class.
So then how do you guys know who submitted what? Because I did work through all of that, like I said, and I don't know if you guys got my progress report and to be considered for the class in September, because that's when I want to take it.
Yep. So the way that you'll do it is here, let me pull up the challenge here for the little bunny that they have you draw or whatever. So if you've been doing all of your code just here in Khan Academy, that's when you're going to want to go ahead and copy and paste your code into that P5JS editor in order for it to do what you want it to do. So there's the little bunny. It's in the draw section. That's why it wound up showing up on my work there. You can disregard all of the rest of this. So you can copy and paste and start there. But as you'll notice, the project for making the bunny, for example, it doesn't have variables in use. I made number and color, but I'm not using them anywhere in here. It doesn't have a for loop. It doesn't have a conditional. So you'd want to revise your code to make sure that it meets those requirements and then send it in. And the P5JS sketch that you do, that's what you'll submit to us using that submit form, using that pre-work submission form. And once we get that link, then we'll know, okay, they've done the pre-work. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if they'll be able to make the cut for the fall classes.
Yeah, because I think I did submit it, but I just wasn't sure if you guys did receive it, because I did do the project and I submit everything. So I was just wondering.
Yeah. If you just want to email the classes@codethedream.org with your name, and I can go ahead and double check it, and I can let you know, yeah, we did get it, or no, we don't have it on file. So that way we can confirm whether or not we received it for you. In general, I think I do have an automation set up though, so that way when you submit your pre-work, you should get an email saying, thank you, we received your pre-work. I think. I'm pretty sure I've got that in place. Yeah.
All right, I'll do that. And when is the deadline before September classes start?
Yep, the pre-work should be in by this Sunday, the 23rd, the end of the day. Or Monday morning. It's perfectly fine too, because Monday morning is when we'll be checking links. Yep.
All right, I'll double check if I did submit it, and then I'll email you guys to see if you did receive it as well.
That sounds great. Thank you. Okay, there were some other questions in chat I wanted to address real quick for folks. Let's see here. We talked about the loops and arrays. Once you finish the course, does the program offer internships? So after the advanced class and after the practicum, then yes, we do have an apprenticeship program available. It's only applicable for individuals who have work authorization in the US currently. It is paid and you do get benefits. And it depends on how many apprentices we have graduating out of our program as far as what the availability is like. It can really vary. I've seen us accept only 1 or 2 folks out of an advanced class practicum. I've seen us accept close to 10. So it really just depends on when and how people are leaving the organization to be able to then have spaces that need to be filled by people who are graduating out of the program and into the apprenticeship part. Hopefully that helps. Stephanie had asked that question. Stephanie, if you're still on and you have additional questions about that, let me know. Let's see here. Do React students need to complete the pre-work assignment to join the Node.js class? Oh, that's an excellent question. Yeah, so whatever advanced class you're applying for, React, Node, Ruby on Rails, you just do that one advanced pre-work assignment and submit it. And it doesn't matter which class you're applying for, that one advanced pre-work assignment that you submit, that's the only one that we need. So if you want to take React and Node and can do that 30 to 40 hours a week time commitment, then just submit one project. You don't have to submit multiple projects. And I think there were some other questions. When I submitted my pre-work, I got an email showing me the link that I submitted, and when I click on it, it's missing the underscore. Valerie, if you're still on the call, when you click that link in that confirmation email that you got, does it still take you to your code? I'm not sure if Valerie's still on or not. Yeah, the big thing to check, it looks like they aren't. The big thing to check, once you submit your pre-work, you'll get that confirmation email and it'll say, this was the link that we received from you. So just click on your link and make sure that it takes you to where you want it to go. If you had some kind of typo or anything like that, that caused any kind of an issue with getting us to the right place on the internet, so to speak, then you'll want to go ahead and resubmit and make sure that we have that link and that it's taking us to where we want to go. So it's just testing to make sure the link you submitted is going to show us what we want, what you want us to see, what we need to see. And I think, let's see here, if there are any other questions. Leah asked a great question. Can we find a professional job with the intro class only? It would be extremely rare. So the intro to programming really just covers JavaScript basics, HTML, CSS, and it starts to touch on using APIs and like working across the internet with data that is housed elsewhere. So it gives you good foundational skills, but it doesn't get your skill level to the degree where most junior developers or interns are at. For that, you'll want to take intro and then take advanced and do the practicum, and that'll put you in a better position to be able to get into a professional job in development. We had a question about what does your score have to be for the pre-work in order to enter the class? I think the scoring works such that if you have like about a 4, 4.5, somewhere in there as your score, that typically gets you in. The big takeaway is make sure that you hit all of the requirements. So if you're doing the advanced pre-work, make sure you're hitting those 2 end data points, that you have navigation, that it's on a public repository, that you've shown that you understand how CSS works, how HTML works. And if you are doing the intro, make sure that you have those 4 requirements: variables, unique function, loop, and conditional in your code. And then let's see here, more information. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, Irina had asked about more information or instructions that need to be in the README file. So for advanced pre-work students, so those of you who are applying directly into the advanced classes and doing the advanced pre-work, the README file is just a way for you to be able to kind of let us know what your project was that you did and how we should get it to run. So some people might prefer to deploy their app, so make it live on the internet somewhere. You can do that through a couple of different things, like GitHub Pages, I know is one offhand. I think Render might not be behind a paywall yet to where you could have it on there. Netlify is another way to be able to deploy your site. So if you are deploying your site in some way, shape, or form, include that in your README instructions and or put the link so that way we can click the link and go directly to your site that you have live. Let's see here. Can I text in these instructions information about API key? I would not recommend putting your API key in your README instructions. That is an excellent point, though, that if you are using an open source API that you need an API key in order for it to function, then I would recommend emailing that API key to classes@codethedream.org. And that way I can go ahead and let the review team know this is the API key you need to input for their code to run. Did that help, Irina, if you're still on the call?
Yes, it helped me, but I thought maybe you provide your own APK, not mine. Maybe you registered on this site, so I just like print some text where you need to print this APK. It's possible that, or I need to provide my own?
It depends on which open source API are you using? Are you using like the Coffee one?
Marvel.
Okay, Marvel. Okay. They should have an option for you to be, for the Marvel one, I think they have an option for you to be able to like request an API key, and then you'll use that in your code. Typically you have to house your API key in like a .env file, so that way it doesn't upload your API key to your public files on GitHub. For security reasons, you always want to make sure that your API key is not visible to anybody that can just go to your public repository and take a look through your files. But they should have one there accessible. If you, see, I haven't played around with Marvel myself to know on that specific open source one, how that winds up working. If you wouldn't mind emailing classes@codethedream.org just with your name and your API key, so that way if we do run into any errors getting your code to run, then we have that and we can plug that in to be able to use it.
In Redmi file, I also provide deploy. So I don't anywhere in my public repositories provide my own APK. So if you need, I just scan you like in a direct message. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that is perfectly fine to do.
I need to send this till 23 July.
Yes, yeah, preferably have it in by the end of the 23rd of July. So that's this coming Sunday. Like I said, there's a little wiggle room. So if it's, 1 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, when you're finishing things and wrapping things up, that's fine. Still go ahead and send it in.
Okay, in the chat, your print email, yes, classes
yes.
Yes, this address. Okay, thank you.
Yep, classes@codethedream.org. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, and then typically how long does it take for a student to progress from beginner to advanced to apprenticeship? That is an excellent question. For that, I'm actually going to go ahead and minimize my, hold on, I'm going to move that out of the way and then minimize this. So our current schedule for how our classes run, sorry, let me completely move this out of the way because it's really annoying. This has historical classes, so it goes back to 2022 and 2023. But for 2023-24, these are the classes that you all would be applying for that start on September 13th, September 27th. So if you're starting in our September 13th fall 2023 intro class, then you'll wrap up end of January 2024. You'll have a couple weeks break. Then you'll start your advanced classes. That's this section along here. You have a couple weeks break in between that and practicum. So by fall of 2024, so about mid-September 2024, you should have completed the fall 2023 intro class, your spring advanced class, and your summer practicum, and then be ready to roll to be able to apply for jobs. We try and gauge it so that way you can learn enough in a condensed enough amount of time that about a year roughly would be the turnaround time from start to finish. Hopefully that helped answer your question, Bianca. If you do have other questions, feel free to share.
In this case, if possible, I also had a question. So,
yeah, absolutely, Dimitri.
Like when we do complete all of this, do you provide any information like where to apply for a job? Do you have any references or anything like that?
Yeah, currently we don't have anything specific in place to be able to kind of filter feed you directly into any kind of company or organization, but we're always working on our partner organization relationships. So right now, apprentices are working with companies like SAS, and I think we're also getting ready to start a relationship with Cisco, to where people who have apprenticed with Code the Dream then intern with SAS or Cisco, and then they get hired on after their internship from there. We do offer resources to be able to help with like resume review, taking a look at your LinkedIn profile, giving you feedback about how to booster your portfolio to be able to help you increase your employability. But we don't have like a direct channel like, okay, you've graduated, boom, you're going to be working for XYZ company.
Well, sure, but still, like some help is really useful. That I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. And just networking through the alumni. So once you graduate from classes too, then you can sign up for like alumni network newsletters, and we periodically have alumni events throughout that are either like practice interviews for technical interviews or resume workshops, and just having a Slack communication channel between alumni. So that way people can be like, hey, I got hired on by so-and-so. They're also looking for other people who have the same background and experience like what I got through Code the Dream. So, hey, if you're wrapping up your class, go ahead and apply to the company that just hired me. So you get some networking opportunities through that as well.
Can you quickly tell us what is practicum?
Yeah, so practicum is just advanced students forming small groups to be able to work on a project start to finish. It's a pretty intense 8 to 10 week period. You get to pick your own groups. So as you meet people throughout your program and throughout classes, you can decide who it is that you want to work with. And usually you have some front-end team members, some back-end team members. The back-end team members build up your data structures. The front-end team members build your user interface. So that's what your clients or what the people who are visiting your website work with. And then the backend users are the ones who are structuring the data that those clients or those users will interact with. And you decide on what the project is you want to build, and you just work on it start to finish. Practicum is a really good opportunity to learn about like the tools that are in place in the industry as far as how large teams of developers communicate with one another effectively to make sure that they're all on the same page as far as what needs to be built when and how, making sure that the code is functional and tested and working so that end users like us, when you go to a website, you find what you want to find, and your forms that you submit for being on emails lists or anything like that work like they're supposed to.
Thanks. I'm sorry that I cut the line. I think Kimberly has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Kimberly. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Kimberly, hold on, you're still muted.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, I do it all the time too.
It might have been answered, I don't know, but I noticed on the website that one of your classes ended and one of the other classes began, but it like overlapped by week. Did somebody already ask that?
That's probably
that's not really an issue.
No,
I'm hoping that's an issue.
It's not an issue anymore. Yeah. So we were trying to increase our class sizes, and we did it in a very messy, convoluted way where it'd be like, okay, a class started 6 weeks later, let's start another class. 6 weeks later, let's start another class. And it just became overwhelming and kind of hard to sustain that growth. So that's why we've moved to this trimester schedule. And with the trimester schedule, then you're not really going to have any of that overlap. So for example, like the intro class that starts spring 2024, it has overlap with the intro class that starts summer 2024, but both of these are intro classes. So there wouldn't wind up being any kind of issue there. If somebody isn't able to complete the intro class and they want to defer, it doesn't matter that there's overlap because they would be starting over with intro at that point anyway. All of our intro classes have about a 2 to 3 week gap between when the intro class ends and when their coordinated advanced classes begin. So the spring intro class would do summer advanced classes, and they have a 2 week gap. The summer intro class would do fall advanced classes. They have a 2 week gap. The fall intro class has a 3 week gap between them and the fall advanced classes. Yeah.
Okay, I think it was like with React and Node, they overlapped by a week, but I think that's
what
but that's not really, if you wanted to do both, you would just overlap for a couple of days, really.
Exactly. Yeah. If you wanted to do both, then you would just overlap for that brief period. Yeah. So if you finish the intro class here and you take React here, and then you wanted to start this Node class where you have a couple weeks overlap, yeah, that's perfectly fine to do.
And once you're a student through the intro and you do well, do you still have to apply the same way, or is your you kind of graduate along with the program?
You graduate along with the program. Yeah. So Anna Gerhardt was on the call earlier today. She's in one of our own intro classes now. And for intro, you build your final project. When you submit your final project, that replaces having to do the pre-work assignment that we've been talking about for people who are trying to test out of intro and go straight into advanced.
Okay.
Yeah, so once you're in intro or once you're in advanced, your final project of your current class serves as your pre-work for the next class that you want to take with us. Sonali, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry for question. It's getting late now for you maybe. Yeah, so a quick question. After finishing intro JS class or course, is it possible to take the advanced two classes together, like React.js and Node, for example, React.js and Node.js?
Yes, you can take React and Node at the same time together after you complete the intro class. Just be aware it's a lot of work. It's that 30 to 40 hours a week of work for those two classes, because each class is about 15 to 20 hours worth of work each week.
Okay, so in that way, we can finish early all this training. We can finish early. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't have to take, I'm glad you you asked, because it brought something to mind for me, Sonali. You don't have to take all of our advanced classes to complete the program. You just can take intro, one advanced class, the practicum after that advanced class, and that gets you job ready to do an internship or to do a entry level junior developer kind of position.
Okay.
If you're interested in the other technologies, the other frameworks, like if you want to learn backend full stack of Node and Express, and you want to be proficient in React, then you can take those classes simultaneously. You can take one right after the other. We also have flexibility as far as that practicum goes. So if you're wanting to take React after intro, and then you want to take Node after React, you don't have to do the practicum after React class and after your Node class. You can just do one or the other. If you want to do a practicum after both, you can do that as well too. So once you get out of intro and you start getting into the advanced, then each student's path can look different based on what your own personal goals are, as far as what technologies you want to learn, how quickly you want to be ready to be able to get out into the job market.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank
you. Absolutely. Any other lingering questions? We did have a question about timeline for the Node class. So if you are applying to the Node class that starts September 27th, yes, the last official day of class will be February 20th, 2024 for the React, Ruby on Rails, and Node classes that start September 27th. The official last day is February 20th. Usually the 2 to 3 days after that date is when you do your final project presentations. Everybody just hops on a call together and shares all of their hard work. And then you have a little bit of a downtime before your practicum starts. Usually you have about 10 to 14 days between when your advanced class ends and your practicum begins. Hopefully that helped, Luba. And T, you've got a question?
Yes. Where can I find this recording of today's session?
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to be, once we get off the call and I stop the recording, then I'm going to try and download and upload it to YouTube tonight so that if, assuming my bandwidth holds up and I can get the email out to all of you tonight, I will. If my bandwidth does not hold up and it's going to take several hours for the upload, then you'll have an email in the morning with a link to the recording for tonight. Thank you for bringing that up, T.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, any other final questions out there? Hopefully this session's been helpful. Feel free to thumbs up or thumbs down if you thought it was helpful or if you're still completely lost and confused. I will be hanging on until folks feel like they're in good shape and ready to rock and roll. Good, I'm glad to see some thumbs up there.
I have a final question.
Yeah, absolutely, Leah.
Do you find an internship for everyone?
So we aren't able to necessarily take on everybody. It depends on how many spots we have open in our apprenticeship program as to how many people we can take on. But that number varies throughout the year. So if we bring on new clients that we have to build sites or applications for, then we'll be hiring more people to be able to get on that team to build that product for the client. If we have apprentices that are getting hired out to other companies, leaving vacancies, just like in the real world, you know, somebody quits a job and moves on to something else, then it leaves a vacancy that that company has to fill. So in instances like that, then we would have seats available for graduates from the program to then go into the apprenticeship roles. And we talk more about, we talk more in detail about the practicum, about the advanced classes, about the apprenticeship in the intro and in the advanced classes as you're going through. We have usually little workshop type of meetings about halfway or 2/3 the way through your class to talk about it. So that way it reminds you of everything we talked about in these early days and kind of refreshes your memory and answers any questions that you have about next steps in the program.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of questions. So if you feel like you've gotten everything you need, feel free to hop off of the call. If you still have some questions, then stick around and I'll help as many people as I can. I am going to go ahead and stop recording. And if any interesting questions come up after the recording, I'll be sure to include that in the email I send to everybody. Thank you all so much for coming tonight and hanging in with me for the long haul. Hopefully it's been helpful to you all.